So, have you ever wondered why you feel the way you do about all things pre K, about working with young children? Today, I wanted to talk about what our perspectives are concerning young children, what that looks like for us, and helping us to reset our mindset around young children. Young children are close to the heart of God. When God talks about young children, when Jesus talks about young children in Matthew, he said that they are like the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. And I've always said that pre K is like a little slice of heaven because Jesus said that when we receive a little child, we're actually receiving him. And when we look at little children, our perspective, how we look at them and what our perspectives are towards little children really guides how we treat them. And so we want to be really careful about what our perspectives actually are. I remember when I was a teenager, I did not like young children. God has a sense of humor because there is no way in life that I ever would have thought that I would be working with young children. I did not like them. I thought that they were nasty. I thought that they were annoying. And my whole perspective on them was just very, very negative. And as I grew and as I developed and started to have, and I got married and had my own kids, my perspectives have changed. And now being an early childhood educator and working in pre-K, like I absolutely love working with young children. And so it's very important for us as teachers and parents who work with young children for us to be aware of what our own perspectives are concerning our children, right? Young children are close to the heart of God. Like Jesus literally said in Matthew 18, if anyone should cause any of these little ones to sin or lead them in the wrong direction, you might as well go jump off into the ocean with a large stone around your neck. So, we really want to remember that God's heart, he loves children. We are his children. And God doesn't have any adult children and he doesn't have any stepchildren. We're all his children. And when we approach God and um, when we think of ourselves, we ought to think of ourselves as a child because we are a child of God. And it's really important for us to remember that these little ones that we work with day in and day out, these little ones that are in our homes and we see them and we have to teach them so much and they don't know a lot because they just got here. But at the same time, not only are we in their lives to teach them, but they are also in our lives to teach us something. And I believe that the children that God places in our lives, he places them there so that they can help to draw us closer to him. Because trust and believe, we're going to need God's help in raising them. And if you're a teacher, in teaching them in your classroom. Some people, when they come into my classroom or when they see how I work with young children, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so patient. Like, how? And I'm just like, girl, it ain't me. It's God has given me the grace to work with his children. He has given me the grace and the patience to be able to help them to like see things from their perspective. Right. And so when, as time goes on and I realize, wow, this is literally a whole person. This is not, uh, you know, this is not a grown up. Like they've only been here for 2 years. They've only been here for 3 years. They really don't know a whole lot. And if I am looking at them with a negative lens or a negative perspective, like, oh, why do I have to, or oh, they're crying again, or oh, why they're whining, or whatever, then the way how I handle them or the way how I treat them is going to be affected by my perspective. And so we want to shift our perspective to have a kingdom perspective of of young children, of pre-K students, of preschoolers, of toddlers, and of babies, they because how we see them, how we view them, what our perspectives are of them is going to govern how we treat them. And we want to make sure that we are treating them the way how God desires for us to treat them. Why? Because when we welcome any one of these little ones, we are welcoming Jesus himself. And so we really need to remember that, take a deep breath and just, okay, Lord, give me wisdom on how to deal with this. So I want to share three things, three ways that we can reset our mindset around working and dealing with young children. So the first one is we have to ask God. That's for all three of them, it's ask God. But what are we asking God for? We need to ask God for wisdom because we don't know. I always hear people say, oh, well, these kids, they don't come with a manual, they don't come with a handbook, we don't know what to do with them. But the creator, the one who created them, the one whose mind they were in before they were even in your womb, before they even came into this world, he knows them. He knew them when they were in the belly. And we need to go to him. We need to ask him for wisdom on how to deal with his children. There's some kids that are really, really strong-willed. I call them the character builders. I live with one in my house, and I have quite a few in my classroom. And it's important for us to really seek the heart of God concerning these children. We cannot do it on our own. We cannot raise the children or teach them the way they should be taught and the way they should be raised on our own. We literally need the help of their creator, God, to help us. We need his wisdom. We need his insight because he knows them, because he knew them before they were even born. He knew them when they were still in their mother's womb. And so when we go to God about that and ask him, God, what am I supposed to do, God? You see how this child is behaving. You see my struggles concerning this. Just be honest. There's no reason to try to make it seem as if you have it all together when you don't. I've been working with kids for quite a while, more than 10 years, almost 15 years. And I don't have all the answers, but God does. And so when you ask him and you wait for his answer he will help you and he will give you the wisdom that you need to deal with that child, to deal with those kids. Okay. So that's number one, ask God for wisdom. Another thing that you can ask God for is our perspective, to ask God to change your perspective on that child rather than seeing them as an annoyance or rather than seeing them as bad or as difficult or as, oh, now my whole day is going to go down the toilet. No, ask God to change your perspective, right? Because when your perspective changes, everything changes. When you begin to look at that child as a blessing, as a future leader, as someone who's going to change the world in a positive way someday, when you begin to look at those children as these are God's children, like he created them with a purpose and a plan. He has something amazing for them to do in the earth. And how you handle them now in their formative years between the ages of 2 and 5 or birth to 5, really, it's going to make a difference in their life. And you want to make sure that you are pouring into them life, that you're not squelching their individuality or their personality, but that you are guiding them in the right way so that they will grow up to become all that they can be, right? I've heard so many different stories over the years of like adults who said, oh, I remember when I was in the first grade, or I remember when I was in kindergarten, this teacher, she was so mean. Actually, I have a story. I remember when I was in the first grade, I had a first grade teacher and she was so mean. She used to shout at us. Her breath stunk. She was always eating. And and like she wouldn't allow any of the kids to eat. Like if a kid said they were hungry, she was just so mean and nasty. No, you can't. She would always just yell, and then she would put a big red X on your paper. She was horrible, right? And that is a memory I have. I'm 40 something now, and that is a memory I had of when I was younger. This first grade teacher was terrible, and she did not treat us nicely. And we want our students and our children to have a different narrative of their experience in our classroom and in our home, right? As parents. And so we're going to ask God for wisdom, and we're going to ask God to change our perspective. Lord, help me to not see these kids as an annoyance. And the word annoy, right, literally means when you look at someone as hateful. It says annoy. The Latin meaning of the word annoy is it is hateful to me. So if you look at a child as if that child is hateful to you, then you're not going to treat them right. So we want God's perspective on his children. Jesus said in Matthew 18, don't stop the children from coming to me. Let them come. Jesus wanted the kids close to him. He wanted them around him. And he blessed them. He put his hand on them and he blessed them. And he was gentle towards them. And it's the same way that we should be. Now we need God's help, because sometimes you don't always be in a gentle mode. You be looking at them kids like, Lord, I need help. Okay, help, because I don't know what's going on here. But God, in his graciousness and in his mercy, he will help you to change your perspective and show you what his perspective on that child is, because the fact of the matter is he has a plan for that child that goes way beyond what you could ever even think or imagine. And so you want to make sure that you're handling this child correctly, right? The way how God would want you to. And then the third thing is we need healing. We ask God for healing from our past traumas, right? Rather than me allowing my experience when I was younger in the classroom with this mean teacher, rather than me holding on to that and being bitter about it and say, oh, well, these kids, they deserve to be. No, I need to go to God for healing. Lord, help me to let this go. Help me to forgive this teacher. Help me to have a new view on, that experience, right? And God will help you. He will heal your heart. He will heal your mind. He will heal your emotions. And he will heal that trauma that you experienced when you were younger. It's not your fault that whatever happened to you happened. It's not, and it's not lost on it. Like God is not up there, trying to wonder, what happened. He knows what happened and he understands. But you have to go to him and ask him to heal your heart and to take away the bitterness and to release them, release the people, release the person into your forgiveness so that you can be free. Right? Today is Freedom Friday, and it's all about being free from the past things that held us bound. It's about working with the children that we work with in freedom and in liberty, right? And in the graciousness and in the kindness that God has for us as his children. I remember one time I asked God, I said, God, well, how do you really feel about me? And immediately he said, I love you with an everlasting love. I said, wow, an everlasting love. That means that love is never ending. It keeps on going and going and going. And so I want to encourage us today to ask God for his perspective on those kids in your class and those children in your house. Ask God for wisdom. Ask God to change your perspective on these children, and ask God to heal you from the past traumas that are trying to hinder you from moving forward in the fullness and in the beauty of the life that God has planned for you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.